My name is Sandy Gunderson. I've been part of the team at Becker County, which is Detroit Lakes is the county seat. And so Becker County, I've been with Becker County or I had been with Becker County till I retired last June, for almost 34 years. And so as part of the team, I've seen a lot of changes in those years. And so with RETAP, I just started with RETAP this summer, so it's something that's pretty new to me. But I will explain. I'm kind of in a new position regarding community sustainability. So this is kind of something different, and to help local units of government or local organizations kind of jumpstart or get involved with community sustainability. So for me, this is part of my heart. I love this. And for me, my goal or my focus is, of course, solid waste. I love talking trash. I love talking trash because it's so much more than trash. For me, it's a reflection on how we live and how we work and how we play. And so it's not just trash, it's a resource. And I truly believe that, as the first slide says. So when Barbara and I were talking, this is another one of my favorite sayings about never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. One of my favorite sayings of Margaret Mead. And I truly believe in, no matter what the topic is, that it's the community members that really make the change. And if we want it, then our leaders, if we can get enough critical mass, our leaders will listen to us. And I truly believe that. So I can only speak from my experience. So I just kind of wanted to share where I'm from. And throughout this presentation, I'm good with questions as we go. If people are okay with that, I'm good with questions at the end also. I live in Becker County, and so this is where we are, where the red county is. It's a population of about 35,000, just over 35,000 residents, season, in the average population. But in the summer, just as you are, I think, your population greatly increases. And with the funding for Becker County and for general purposes, you build for that normal population of 35,000, but you really have to build it for the population that you get in the summer, because waste doesn't go away in the summer, it increases. And so you have to build for both, basically. But the funding, of course, is based on the smaller population. So you have to be creative sometimes. If anybody's been to Detroit Lakes, and I know it's the same in Ely, that your population just greatly increases, and that's a blessing, and sometimes it can be a challenge too. So just a little tidbit on RETAP. Years ago, when I first started with Becker County, RETAP was Retired Engineers Technical Assistance Program, and since then they've revamped it to the Retired Environmental Technical Assistance Program. So there's all kinds of resources available through RETAP that you can tap into, and they can help, whether it's entities that you know of or businesses that you know of, that can help them do assessments and help give them suggestions on how they can save money, basically. And it's a no-cost assessment. They can actually they can go statewide and audit whether it's energy or water or waste, things like that. Now, of course, they're going to have recommendations on what that entity can do to save those costs. They'll analyze your bills or whatever. They'll look at what you pay in waste, let's say, or energy or water, and then do some assessments on what you've paid in monthly, let's say, and then they can give you some guidelines on how you can reduce your cost. It's a great service. And for me, communities,
Sandy,
yes.
I just want to let our audience know that the Green Team in Ely is trying to get the city of Ely to get
Yes.
some free audits, energy audits on city buildings through RETAP. And so although this sounds like a jumble of letters, it actually is a very important jumble of letters and something that we've all been pushing for to get the city.
It's absolutely, it's a great resource, and I don't know how many people know about it. So really, that's, you know, that's what's great to have that available. And if you can think of anybody else, that any businesses or any local entities in your area besides the city, it's for regular commercial businesses. It's for anybody who is interested in reducing their costs as far as commercial entities. All right. So one of my favorite pictures, I start almost all of my speeches with this picture because I really, how many people can identify this? When I go out and talk to people and I say, where do you take your garbage? And I get hands up in the air and they say, we take ours to the dump. Well, this is what they used to look like. And you can see with, you know, vehicles and tires and all kinds of things in there. They don't look like that anymore. We can't call it a dump anymore. And in Becker County, for sure, that's the case. It's not a dump anymore. We've come a long way statewide in managing wastes. And thank goodness. I mean, it's definitely more expensive than it used to be. Every township, and for sure, every county had their own dump. And it's definitely, that's not true anymore. And so thank goodness for that. And most rural counties, to varying degrees, manage solid waste in a specific way. And this is definitely true in Becker County. So they manage municipal solid waste, or what we call garbage or trash. They manage construction or / demolition waste, which is building materials, wood, sheetrock, shingles, concrete, those kind of things. Receiving traditional commodities of paper, plastic, cardboard, glass, that kind of thing. And then there's things like special waste, we call them. So that's bulbs and ballast, fluorescent bulbs or LED bulbs, tires, scrap metal, waste oil filters. And in Becker County, also what goes under that is mattress recycling. We just started mattress recycling in this county a few years ago. I can go a little bit more into that. And then something new is waste diversion and reuse, and I'll go into that a little bit more. And then hazardous waste, and that is they also manage, all counties manage it one way or the other, hazardous waste. So you may not have a hazardous waste facility in your county, but it is managed by a regional facility then that has event collections within your county. And I believe that Duluth manages your area. I think. So every county is required to manage these kind of things. They don't necessarily have to manage it within your city or your county, but it has to make the service available, whether it's remotely or by an event collection. And so you should be able to get rid of these items one way or the other where you are. And then this is true of Becker County, but it's true with most counties. The goal is to increase recycling rates within reason, you know, as far as cost, if it's economically feasible. And the farther out of Minnesota, out of greater Minnesota, the more challenging it is because the more expensive it is. So the further out you live in small town Minnesota, the more expensive it is. But to increase recycling, to reduce operational costs, that's always the first thought with anything is, what is it going to cost us? And then if possible, if businesses, whether it's a private business or a county or a township or a city, is creating jobs. And that's sometimes a little bit more of a challenge for sure for smaller cities. And so this is just an example of Becker County. Now this, when I started, this was not the transfer station. We had a 2-door transfer station that you backed into, and we averaged a pretty small amount of business. I started in Becker County in 1990, And we used to do everything by hand. That was before computers even. And so we added and subtracted with an adding machine. That's not the case anymore. Almost everything is done electronically, managing the waste, tallying the volumes, everything like that. So this is the most recent transfer station that was built in 2016. And it's actually a drive-through, so people can drive through, dump their garbage or their garbage into dumpsters inside the building, and then they drive through and head to different areas. And actually, I'll have to point this out. The lower picture shows a transfer station. It was about 2 years after we opened this transfer station. We had a fire in this transfer station. And they believe it could have been batteries. They're not exactly sure, but they believe it could have been batteries. And you hear things happening with batteries and the challenges. Recycling facilities and transfer stations have big challenges with batteries. You use big machinery in these facilities, and then you use buckets and you scrape back on the concrete, and that creates a spark, and sparks create big problems when you're dealing with garbage, because garbage is what? Basically kindling for a fire. And so there's big challenges with that. So batteries, that's why you hear a lot about batteries and transfer stations, landfills, and recycling facilities. Becker County actually pulls their transfer trailer. This is a transfer station rather than a landfill. And we pull the trailer out every night. So if there is a fire, the only thing that would burn up would be the trailer, not the whole transfer station. There was $1 million worth of damage, and we used the old transfer station for 6 months. We were out of the transfer station a long time. That's a long time in transfer station days. And it was actually longer than 6 months, but yeah, it created a great big mess that melted a lot of things inside. The outer side of the building looked pretty good, but the inside was a mess. So I just want you to know, after chatting with Barbara and her climate committee, I want you to know this is where we started. We started with recycling sheds in 1990. We have come a long way, and it's taken a long time to work through what we have. So recycling sheds were about, I think they were about 10 by 12, and then we graduated up to 14 by 16. When we first started recycling, we recycled four different types of items. And when we got done, we were recycling 10 different kinds of items, paper, plastic, cardboard, glass, and then we had clothing in there. And it was just a mess. By the time we got done with this, it was a big mess. You had people that would throw their bags in there and back out and slam the door. It was because, especially in the summer, there was a lot of items in there. It was just a mess. And we have in Becker County, we're not as big as Otter Tail County as far as land surface, but we had 47 sites throughout the county that we serviced. That's a lot of sites. Just in comparison, I think Otter Tail County, which is just south of us, has about 30 sites, and Hubbard County, which is just to the east of us, I think had about 12 or 15 sites. So 47 sites is a lot of sites. And we did everything from where we serviced it ourselves. So we hired someone to service it, and that got really expensive. And then we went back to servicing it ourselves. And then we decided that we had to change in 2009. And we changed to 10-yard dumpsters. Now, 2009, if anybody remembers, 2008, 2009, that's when we had our last recession. And we wrote a grant with the Department of Energy Security in Minnesota for a $50,000 grant to purchase 10-yard containers, 10-yard dumpsters. And this is what our public sites look at like right now, is 5, and some sites have 8 to 10 dumpsters because the volume has increased so much. Dumpsters at these 47 sites. And we actually at the same time purchased our it purchased trucks, recycling trucks. And right now, I believe we have Becker County has 3 recycling trucks that go around and service these sites. And with a $50,000 grant, Becker County spent $250,000 on dumpsters and another $250,000 for the first truck. And then it was a few years later that they purchased additional trucks. It has greatly increased the volume, has greatly increased the processing capacity, and I'll show you now where we're processing. But it's definitely, we started in 1990. Where we are right now, we've come a long way, but we started with sheds. We used to work out of a building. I think that might be our next picture. Yes, this is our building, our first recycling facility. It was basically a machine shed that was 30 by 30. Literally, the guys processed recyclables out of a shovel. That's how we started. And it's definitely doable. It's a volume a lot less than, absolutely. But we've come a long way. This is what it looked like in 2013 on the 4th of July. We didn't have the capacity to store it anywhere, so they had to dump it outside the building, and then we processed it as fast as we could. And thank goodness things didn't get wet. Now we definitely have a different capacity, a holding capacity. Times were different then. But we worked, I believe, about 10 years out of that shed before we were able to build a recycling facility. And start small and then you build up. We went from sheds to this. And then this was our next facility in 2018. So you think about that. 2018 isn't that long ago. And in this particular picture on the left, you'll see the 2 stalls. That's our recycling center. On the right, you'll see where we added on in 2022, and I'll show you an aerial view from what it looks like now. But we actually use institutional community work crews. Has anybody heard of Sentence to Serve? This is the state level of a Sentence to Serve crew. It's the ICWIC crew. Through the Minnesota Department of Corrections, we hire a crew of up to 10 correctional folks, actually prisoners, and that they're out. This is a program that they are able to get out of the prison system early. They live at our jail, but they actually work at our facility, and they would rather work there than sit in the jail all day. And I've had many of them tell me that they work hard. And so that has been true. When we built this building in 2018, they actually were working in our old facility, that 30 by 30 building. We didn't have 6 to 10 people then. There was maybe 5 at the most. And now they send more up when they're down, down a few people. They send more people that apply to be in that program. The phase 1 you'll see is that black box. That's the original facility that we were just looking at. In 2023, we got a grant for the first part, and we got a grant for the second orange outlined facility to add on to the recycling facility. A material recovery facility, it's called. It's actually, we call it the MRF, Material Recovery Facility. And there's lots of operations that happen in the facility. There's in the right hand, the orange right-hand side, the orange outline on the right-hand side is where things get baled. The black section is where things actually get processed through machinery. It's partially manually separated and partially machinery separated. So we have manual for the paper, cartons, and cardboard, and then machinery, the plastic and the aluminum and tin get separated. We do not accept glass in our single sort recycling. We have single sort recycling and source separated recycling. At our public sites, they take them source separated. We have plastic, metal, and tin in one bin. So, and then we have glass in another bin, cardboard in another bin, and paper in another bin in those dumpsters. So we bring together some of the commodities, but not all of them. And the commodities that we put together, the metal, plastic, and aluminum or tin is separated by machines. That's done by machines. So we have kind of a hybrid system. Any questions so far? Kind of confusing, but and so the glass, because we ask that people not put, our curbside program is in the bigger cities of Detroit Lakes, Lake Park, Audubon, and Frazee. And Detroit Lakes is really the only bigger city. We ask that people don't put glass in the single stream at curbside, because once it hits our tipping floor here at the recycling center, of course, what does it do? It breaks. And then you get those shards up into the processing where some of it's done manually. So it's a safety issue. And people are very good about it in Becker County. There's some glass that comes through, but not as much as you'd expect. And when we initially started doing the recycling, Fargo, which is just 45 miles west of us, accepted glass in their recycling. They don't anymore. They asked for it to be pulled out too. So people are getting more used to not putting glass. We have a lot of people from North Dakota over here. They come over for the lake, to enjoy the lake on the weekends. So this is our recycling system in Becker County. But again, we started very small and worked our way up to this. And then the challenges that we have is everybody's, I think, heard of the forever chemicals, the PFAS. If you haven't heard of them, you're going to hear a lot more about it coming down the pike. And for Becker County, it means that it could possibly, there's a good chance that it's going to increase costs, because with the garbage per se, we either landfill that or incinerate that in the incinerator over in Perm. It's called the Prairie Lakes Municipal Solid Waste Authority, or that's where our incinerator is. That's the entity that manages that. Oops, sorry. The other part goes to either Fargo, the actual trash, the bulky trash goes to either Fargo and or to Grand Forks. So we do some hauling too, and it's not cheap, whether you incinerate it or landfill it. There's because we're so rural, it takes some planning. And so PFAS is going to be a challenge specifically for our demolition waste. Demolition would be sheetrock, shingles, concrete, building type materials. At some point, the rules for the MPCA are going to require that landfills be lined for or poly lined for demolition. We don't have that. We're able to do clay right now, but down the line, they're going to require lining demolition landfill. So it's going to be more expensive. And we're trying to work on things as far as Becker County to kind of not circumvent it, but kind of get ahead of it. And so demolition is going to be the challenge. And so we've started some programs. The challenge is we have a lack of capacity infrastructure for alternative uses. Demolition, most thrift stores, if you've been to thrift stores, don't take demolition material. They don't take wood and 2x4s and doors and things like that. Most thrift stores don't, at least in our area, they don't. And demolition waste is being landfilled. I can't tell you the amount that used to come in and just be buried. And what a shame. But there's also opportunities to create infrastructure down the line to handle the construction and demolition debris. And Becker County started a waste diversion, deconstruction, reuse program to hopefully lower costs and then use the materials as a resource. And we in Becker County really think and I think the MPCA too, it's these materials are a resource, whether it's demolition material or household goods, they're a resource and they shouldn't be landfilled. They shouldn't be incinerated. So there's great opportunities, but you don't have to do them all at once either. As you can see, we certainly didn't in Becker County. And so reuse is one of the things that we started a program in 2019, the October of 2019. We started out with the demolition. We had a big challenge with demolition. We have a huge thrift store here. It's an old Kmart store. So it's 98,000 square feet, of which I think about 75,000 square feet is showroom. And they didn't take demolition material. What do you do with it? We just don't want to just bury it. So we started saving it. We started pulling it out of the waste stream. And then we partnered with a local modular home builder in our community. They had things that they couldn't get rid of, and they would have to pay for it to be landfilled at our transfer station. We want to keep it out of the waste stream. So we partnered with them. And that basically started our program. So you can see some of the pictures that we have here. Doors, some are new doors. Many are old doors, and people want those too. Things that are still wrapped in plastic. 2x4s, we can't keep those on the shelves. It's amazing what comes in. That doesn't sit around very long because people want that. And it's basically just taking a look at what's in there and then trying to pull some out. Now, I just have to be honest with you that we started talking about this probably 30 years ago. And how can we do it? What can we do? How do you do it? And it took that long to really plant the seed and then keep bringing it up and keep bringing it up. So it's not going to happen in a minute. It's going to take a while, but planting the seeds for sure. Here's some more examples. And now these are probably from the last 5 or 8 years. This is since we moved into our site that we are at now is furniture, more furniture, and there's building materials, but that goes so fast. We work with a company called, or a nonprofit called Better Futures Minnesota, where they actually employ men just coming out of the prison system. And they run our store. And now this is actually the cleaned up version. Our store now is full of items that are pulled out of the waste stream. So our staff pulls things out of the waste stream. The employee that they have pulls items out of the waste stream. People are able to donate items out of the waste stream. And what's unique about Becker County's program is that we actually charge for people to purchase the items. They're pretty minimal, but we charge to help offset cost of running the program. So Better Futures Minnesota got a LCCMR grant to run the store from 2019, even I think it's through March or June of this coming 2026. And then to be determined what happens after that. But once you start a program like this, it's more of a challenge to stop it because people really like this program. Our challenge is that we've run out of room. There's so many items that we now need. We need a bigger facility. But you can see what awesome items are. I have some volumes I want to show you on what's come through. These are the volumes. So in 2020, it was small, 255 items, almost 7,000 pounds. We started out, it was three ton. We thought that was pretty big. And then 2021, it was 24 ton. And 2023, it was 33 ton. And in 2024, I guess I don't have the right slide on there, but that was 58 ton. And it brought in just under $50,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of waste that's being kept from the landfill. Now, Duluth, I know, does a similar program. They have, and I'm sure you folks have been to that one, and they don't charge for their waste that they divert. And the goal is to divert waste out of the waste stream. Hubbard County has another program, and they also do the same thing. They divert items out of the waste stream, and they don't charge for it. Becker County wanted to do it so that they could hopefully make their program sustainable by offsetting the costs of employees and that kind of thing. So a couple other things that Becker County does that that is possible is crushed concrete. They recycle crushed concrete. Concrete comes in, and when they get a critical mass of that, they hire someone to come in and regrind it and then resell the concrete. Same with pallets. They do the same thing with pallets. They gather pallets, and then when they get a certain amount, a critical mass for that, they hire someone to come in and grind it. And in all these grindings, the same thing with shingles. Shingles, we collect it, and it takes 3 or 4 years to collect it, and then grind it and sell that for use or resource. So in all the grinding processes of whatever they're grinding, whether it's concrete or pallets or shingles, the metal does get pulled out. So you don't have that worry with whatever you're grinding. The concrete is sold as aggregate. The pallet mulch is actually, we're going to use that in our new organics program to mix in with organic waste to kind of soak up some of the moisture so it doesn't smell. And then the shingles is often used for the county on road surfaces, like rural road surfaces. It's a great program. And then we also sell, we process our own metal recycling. We train people to evacuate the hazardous, the freon, and that kind of thing, and then sell the metal as scrap metal. So that's, again, a resource that helps pay for our program. We have the luxury, we do have some space, so we have the luxury to be able to manage that waste at our solid waste campus. And then deconstruction is the newest nut that Becker County in our region is cracking. The deconstruction is a kind of a phenomenon that is fairly new in Minnesota and in actually in America. It's very well known in like the Scandinavian type areas, but deconstruction, rather than just getting a bulldozer and demolishing it and burying it, whether you take it to a transfer station or a demo site or burying it with a permit by rule on site, which is not going to be available in the near future. You deconstruct it. There's some thought ahead of time as to how much of this can be reused, saved, reused, and then as a resource, reused as a resource. So again, managing waste as a resource rather than as a waste. And it's a new concept. So you can see that when you look at a house, there's different items in the house, whether it's appliances or flooring or metal within the house, or cabinetry. There's all kinds of items that can be reused. And boy, if you don't have to buy brand new, you think of Lakeshore and Becker County, there's a lot of demolishing going on. And people, I think there's been 2 or 3 houses here now to plan ahead. And there's tax incentive to deconstruct. And it's just a different way of thinking. And to get that concept out to people that are thinking about building or remodeling. It's basically, again, planting that seed. And then in 2024, Becker County, as I said before, started mattress recycling. So that's something, that's one of the reasons why they were able to get a grant. They actually got a CAP grant from the state of Minnesota to actually process mattresses. Mattresses are a tough thing to get rid of. They don't landfill well. They're hard to bury, and they don't go through an incinerator well. So if you can pull them apart and sell the different items as a commodity, that's the best. That's also the challenge, because you need a large critical mass to sell all these different commodities that you see here, the foam, the fiber, we take care of the metal and the wood on site to our scrap metal pile and our pallet pile, but the other commodities, it's a challenge. And then they also do batteries. And that's something, as I said, that's been a big challenge for Becker County and for any solid waste facility, whether it's recycling or transfer station. And so Becker County started at our remote sites. There's I think about 20 sites that they collect batteries on. And we hooked it up to a tire, and we bought they're kind of a letter holder that locks, and we do things uniquely in rural Minnesota, and we've definitely increased the capacity of batteries tenfold in the last 4 or 5 years. And people like that availability of getting rid of their batteries pretty close to home. They don't want to drive it into Detroit Lakes. They want to get rid of it where they get rid of their recycling. And so that's where our organics is going to go also. And so organics is the other thing that they're just starting this week, as a matter of fact, where, and we all live in a rural area. And so organics for out in the country is pretty easy. You just throw it over the fence. But it's not easy for like a Detroit Lakes person. It's not as easy. And so increasing or pulling the organics out of our waste stream. If you think of your garbage, what smells in your garbage? It's the organics. And by weight, it can be up to 50% of your garbage by weight could be organics. So whether that's potatoes or the green beans you didn't finish or banana peelings, those are all organics that can be collected and managed. And it's a benefit. The compost that it provides or makes is black gold. It's literally called black gold. And so this is where ours is going to go to Alexandria. Yours would go to Duluth. Duluth has a great program, organics program, and has been doing it for many, many, many years. And so ours will go to Alexandria. And so they're actually just starting to take it this Thursday. And these are some of the contacts that if you would like contacts for an assessment, that would be Rin. And Sydney is my administrator, my supervisor. And then I'm working in the community sustainability area. So that's my contact information. And then Becker County's information. So to me, we don't all have to do it right all at once, but if we plant the seed and then get like-minded people together, boy, it's amazing what can happen. I can tell you that Becker County would not have written a grant if the people from Becker County didn't say, we want curbside recycling. And they went to the city, and the city came to the county, and the county got the grant. It's the public that really drives what we do. And we ask all the time, as far as a county, what do you want? And we don't always get an answer, for sure. As a county, they don't always get an answer, but you keep asking. And then I always encourage people, talk to your city officials, talk to your county officials, get them involved, tell them what you want. And it might not happen right away, but they're listening. You just do what you can and keep moving forward. And then a lot of the I just have to I'm in the library right now with my presentation, and they had a um craft exchange this year. That's something small that's so easy to do. They had 3 tables, large tables of craft items. If you didn't want them anymore, you dropped them off. And then one Saturday they had an event and people could come in and get it for free. And you can do that with so many different things. So it's like reuse, but specific, specific topics. Or fix-it clinics. That was the fix-it clinics. Hennepin County started fix-it clinics where if you have people that know how to fix a lamp or know how to fix a sewing machine or whatever, whatever your skill is, share that with others. People want to know what they can do to fix something. They don't always want to throw it away. That's what I've found when I was working at the reuse stores. People don't want to throw it away. They just don't want it anymore. And they want to bring it someplace that someone else can use it. And so just starting small and then doing what you can, and people will notice. People will take notice. And again, do what you do make a difference. And that small groups make a big difference. So any questions? That's a lot of information.
I guess the questions, I'm gonna have to relay them to Sandy, because I don't think she can just hear you, but Ann.
If I can find a concrete and then how do you build, sort of how do you find the people that need it, how do you build that connection?
Okay, so if you
Yeah.
grind up concrete, how do you find your customers who want ground up concrete?
So when we grind up the concrete, well, we started out with our local county was interested in using it. And so it might be a township, it might be city. We marketed it so that we had well, it started out with the county. The county would use it on road shoulders. And then we also made it available if people wanted to come in and get it to put in their driveway. It's really good aggregate to put in, and it holds really well. It's basically just aggregate. And so we just let folks know that it was a resource that was available to them. It still is not greatly used by the public other than bigger entities that come in to use it, builders or commercial type. And it's easier commercial to let people know because there's fewer of those people. But it's sold, I think it's $20 a ton. So it's very economical. And then the same with the shingles. We actually had a local asphalt company that wanted to partner with us. And for the shingles, we ground it and then he would come in and get it and take it back to his facility, and he could use it in his asphalt mix, a certain percentage of the shingles with his asphalt mix. He could use it. And so that was a promising event that happened. I'm not sure how much he's using. Again, with the mulch, that was something that we wanted to share with others. That was about $20 a ton also. Farmers could use it for bedding for animals. It was a small enough mix or a small enough grind to use for bedding, but now we're going to use it with our compost too. People could come and get it for mulch also. It's not beautifully colored like the pretty mulch that you buy at the store, but it's a lot cheaper.
And what follow-up is, so you identified for possible places and food that would be interested in using this ahead of time. Could have got that in mind or move and start doing these kind of like
So you knew ahead of time that you had customers, is that?
Not necessarily, no. Like the mulch, we knew that we wanted to keep the pallets out of the waste stream. And the shingles, no, we didn't have customers to begin with, but most of what we've done has been, well, we started it on a small scale, and then when it was successful, people like my boss, Steve Skoog, was able to have the county engineer buy in, the highway department buy into using it, to say, yeah, I'll try it. And then, so that allowed us to grind, let's say, the shingles. And then they continued to use it. They put it on local county roads to keep the dust down. And there's some documentation on how much dust it keeps down, and the washouts and things like that. So that helped with the documentation. But can I tell you, I know Hubbard County tried something and it didn't work for them. They tried grinding glass and putting that in with their asphalt grind. And can I tell you, this was probably 15 years ago, if not 20 years ago, and that didn't work for them because the glass got a bad rap. You know, glass, when sun hits it, what happens? It's shiny. It looks like um, glass shards. And so they actually had sold someone some glass to use as aggregate, and they had to go out and tear the driveway up because although the glass was not sharp, it was shiny, and that people didn't want it in there anymore. So that didn't work out so well. We haven't had bad luck such as that. But it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years to get people interested in using that item. It's a long-term investment and a long-term process.
Sandy, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
How close to break even are you? And how much do you have to invest in this through grants or through the county money to keep it going?
Yes, so I would say that probably most of those programs are not a break even, but it's cheaper than landfilling it. Because with landfilling it, there's a long-term cost. With garbage, there's a long-term liability that if there ever was, I don't know if anybody remembers Anoka County, where they had long-term liability, they had to go back and dig up their landfill, and everybody who had ever dumped in that landfill was liable. And so every county has to have a has to have a fund that if they ever had to go back and dig up wherever their garbage was buried, if there was a leak or if there was a problem with it, they have to be able to fund that. And so there's liability with everything. There's a cost with everything. So for example, recycling, there is definitely a cost. We recycle glass. If we can break even in recycling glass, that's a win. Because glass is a challenge, but it's also a commodity. If they can recycle it and break even, then that's good. Because landfilling, there's a cost there too. There's a cost to landfill it. There's a cost to incinerate it. The transportation is really the killer for rural anywhere in Minnesota, because we're transporting it. Whatever we do, we're transporting it someplace else. And that's true in metro, but they're transporting it, 10 miles. We're transporting it 250 miles.
Yeah.
There's a difference. And so
more questions? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Kind of follow-up questions about the glass and pallets with the recycling. I'm curious, as you acknowledge that Beckett County doesn't do glass recycling, are there ideas brewing as to potential solutions, or is the big message to like the public just reusing those when they can, or yeah, what does that look like?
right. if I heard there was a little bit of an echo there, but we encourage folks to, of course, recycle. And our challenge is because we do have two different systems, we have some curbside and some individual bins. We found that the majority of recycling, most people don't have a lot of glass. It's either pickles and relish or wine bottles, beverage bottles, beer bottles. And so the volume of glass has pretty much stayed stagnant. And so there's not as much of a challenge or not as much of a market there as, let's say, paper. Even paper, though, has gone down. Paper, because less people are reading the newspaper, they're doing it online. Cardboard actually has gone up, continues to go up, because more people are buying more items online. I can tell you that the recycling volume during COVID skyrocketed. So did the waste, and so did the hazardous waste, skyrocketed during COVID because more people were home. They were buying more online. They were cleaning their house. Demolition was more because they were remodeling more. It was, you can tell a lot by waste, what comes through the waste stream. You can tell if the economy is good, if the economy is not good. People buy less when the economy is not great. They buy more when the economy is better.
I have a question about plastics.
Okay.
We recycle numbers 1 and 2. What happens to them after that? And then what happens to all the ones that aren't 1 and 2?
Right. And every county is different. Every county takes different varying volumes of varying numbers. So again, like you said, glass, Becker County recycles the large majority of their glass that gets shipped down to the cities. I didn't finish that question, I'm sorry. And it gets recycled down in the cities. Some of the clear glass gets used at Anchor Hocking. Some other glass gets ground into different media, whether it's sandblasting or that kind of thing. The plastic, 85%, and I think this is probably true countrywide and for sure statewide, about 85% is number 1s, number 2s in plastic. That's your pop bottles, your milk jugs, your laundry detergent bottles. It's the bottles with a neck. And so a lot of times you'll see at recycling facilities, 1s and 2s with a neck. And Becker County takes 1s and 2s, and they don't have to just be with a neck. Each county markets differently or through different vendors. And so many vendors take many different things. And so Becker County takes 1 through 7s, but the majority of what they get is 1s, 2s, and 5s. So 85% is 1s and 2s, and then a small percentage, probably 5%, is 5s. A large, those 3 are the biggest volumes that we get in recycling. The other mongrel band, I call them mongrel brands, such as styrofoam, those are not recyclable. Some of the clamshells, if they're not 1s or 2s, sometimes they're 5s. They are a little bit harder to market, but in Minnesota, if you collect it for recycling and there's a market, you must recycle it. One of the biggest questions that we have, at least in Becker County, is, well, I saw on TV, 60 Minutes said that a large majority of the things that we recycle don't get recycled. They just get landfilled. And that's not true. That's not true in Becker County. I'm sure it's not true in your county, and it's not true in Minnesota, because we work really hard in Minnesota to recycle as much as we can. And it's a law. If it's you collect it for recycling, and then there's a market for it and you're able to market it, it must be recycled.
So,
And so,
my question,
yeah,
if I can push a little bit, is after I put the numbers 1 and 2s in the recycle bin and you take it away, then what happens to them? How many of them actually get recycled into something else, and how many find their way into some landfill in some distant place?
Yeah, and it depends on if you're doing 1s and 2s with a neck. I would venture to say that almost 100% of those get recycled. because there's markets for them. There's people want that plastic. The vendors want that plastic. They want to make things out of those items. So there, anything from there's benches, there's decking, there's clothing that are made out of recycled plastic. Now I know there's challenges with that too. You hear a lot of issues with microplastics, and I've heard that some microplastics are coming out of the clothing, and so you know you have to weigh what's good and what's bad. But the large majority of, if you're doing ones and twos, and even fives, I would say, if you're recycling those in your county and it's ones and twos that they accept, the large majority of those are being recycled, unless they're dirty or they've got cigarettes in them, or if there's some kind of contamination, then they won't be recycled. Or if they're someone dumps their recycling in a bin and they leave them in the bag, and there's not a process at your recycling facility that can break those out of that bag. We manually do that. Our facility the guys have to tear them open, but some facilities have bag breakers that they shred the bags up, and then the recycling facilities machines are able to pull that out. And so the large majority gets recycled. Now, if you're recycling something like styrofoam or some clamshells, things like that, those are not recycled, and those would just go into the waste stream.
Okay, last question, I think.
Okay.
Kind of to jump off of your comment about the microplastics in clothing fibers, I'm curious with the pallets, like, yeah, maybe it's just another wives' tale, like the recycling making it to the landfill. But I live under the assumption that pallets are treated with nasty chemicals. And so I'm curious if you can speak to that, and then, yeah, what the thought process is as that goes through your processing process to then be used in mulch for food that's growing, yeah, I'm just curious if that's
Right.
a concern, if those chemicals are making it to the soil, or
Right.
yeah.
So some of the pallets, I believe, are treated with like a green treat, and none of those are put in the pallet pile. So anything that has any kind of treatment, if they're, got any kind of contamination on it, they do not get it put in the pallet pile. It's basically, plain pallets that get put in there. They're pretty picky about what goes back into the pile. And it would be the same thing with shingles. Shingles, when they're put into a pile, if it's not clean, if it's got plastic all over it, if it's contaminated, it doesn't go into that pile to get reground. So they're pretty picky about what they accept and where it goes. Someone had a question on
Yeah, we had an online question.
Yep.
Pre-sorting of recycles. Does it save money, and does it help?
Well, I think it does have help. Out, but it's pretty also, and so that we know that that's pre-sorting, or we call it source separated, that people sort it and put it into bins with like items. But we also know that the easier you make it, the more people will do it. And so when we were able to have a facility that could sort manually and or sort by machinery, we did then combine some things. So we combined metal, plastic, and aluminum. And so then our machines pull that apart. And so our volumes went up when we started accepting those things together. When people didn't have to support it, they did it more. And so that's why we did it, to increase our recycling volume, pull more out of the waste stream.
Okay, thank you. I think we should close it up here. And thank you, Sandy, again for great show.
If anybody has any questions, please email me and I'll be glad to answer anything. And please contact, and if you have questions about Becker County, call them and see what they have to offer, for sure.
I've got a recording of this, so I'll put it on our YouTube channel. So if there are some of these links you want to find, you can find them there.
Yeah, just start
Thanks,
small
everybody.
and plan and do what you can.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you very much. It was great talking to everybody.